The Flash Season 3 premiere, Flashpoint. Now, of course, this episode was pretty fun to watch, but even from the beginning, because they announced this such a long time ago, I knew from the very beginning that I'd have an issue with this episode because we get this cool alternate universe. We get to see Kid Flash. We get to see an alternate version of Cisco and Caitlin and Iris and Joe. And it's really fun to watch, but it's one episode. It's like we get all this cool stuff, and it's like I'm curious, even in this alternate universe, which I know won't matter down the line, but even in this alternate universe, I'm like, I'm curious. I want to learn certain things. I want to know how this character came to be, like the rival. I want to know how that character came to be in that universe, and it's just little stuff. I was like, I'm actually curious, and I feel like there could be an answer that's satisfying, and of course, none of the stuff that happens really matters anyway, because of course it's going to change it. But going through this episode, I enjoyed it. I was like, all right, this is fun to watch. Kid Flash is pretty cool. The visuals, I thought they did a lot of great visuals in this. We got to see a ton of speedster action with, we got to see the tornado stuff. We got to see lightning being thrown around. We got to see a bunch of, red and yellow lightning running together. So that was really cool. And they were doing like during the end fight scene when Barry was fighting, they were like running around. They were like basically defying gravity because they were running in circles around this thing that was like up in the air. I love stuff like that. I'm like, that's really cool because even though we just see like red and yellow lightning, it's like I know what they're doing and it looks really cool and they're running all over the place. So we got to see a ton of that in this episode, and I always love that. I think that as simple as it is, that's a really great visual. I love just seeing the lightning and they're running up and down buildings and they're fighting in there somewhere, but we just see a bunch of lightning and stuff flying through the city. I love that. So I was really happy to see that they went kind of all out really with these visuals of these speedsters running. We got to see like it was like 10 times more than we've seen in like any other episode. It's always here's a little thing here, here's a little thing there, but this would be like long stretches of time where it's like they run from over there all the way to over there, and it's just one solid shot of just a bunch of lightning. So I love that. I thought that was great. The alternate versions of the characters were really cool. Honestly, my favorite thing was probably my favorite alternate thing, at least, was the fact that Iris and Wally were like a brother sister superhero team. I thought that was actually super cool. I was like, I actually love that idea. And then we find out that Cisco actually did help them make the suit, because at first I thought it was like, oh, he's just the smartest guy there, and that's why they went to him. And then it's like, no, I told you guys I didn't want to do that. I already made you that suit. And it's like, oh, he already knew who Wally was and stuff like that. So it's like, this is kind of why I wish that they expanded it, because it's like they throw out certain random things where it's like, I want to know why this is like this, or what changed here, and why is this way, because there are so many questions I had, even though, like I said, it didn't matter. I was like, I wish this was like 2 or 3 parts long, because honestly, I was like, I want to know why Joe is a drunk, because it was just like alternate, so he's drunk. If that's the case, did Wally and Iris grow up together? Did they not grow up together? How was that deal going on? What happened to Star Labs? Because Barry talks a lot about stuff from the past, and it's all still the same. He's like, wasn't this Star Labs? And they're like, yeah, and Ramon brought it up years ago. So did they not have the explosion? There were a bunch of questions. Like, they threw stuff out there. But I was like, even though this is alternate, I'm still really curious. Like, why is this way? Because like, especially the Joe thing with him being drunk, that was clearly a really big deal, and they pointed that out in a couple of scenes where it's like he never shows up to work. Iris, when she met Barry, she was like, honestly, I didn't even know if you still had this job. And I was just like, if that's such a big deal with his character, even though it doesn't really matter because they're going to alter, just go back to the normal timeline, I was still so curious, like, why is he drunk? And that was like the biggest issue I had with this whole thing, where I was like, man, I wish that they just made this a 2-part or a 3-part thing, because there was a lot of other stuff I would have loved to have seen as well. Like, Wells, like, what was his deal in this alternate timeline? Did he even, was he still alive? Was he dead? What was the case? I wanted to see way more of Wally and Barry actually together, because technically we still didn't get that even in the episode. They were next to each other. But Wally fought the rival, and he beat him, and then he almost got killed. And then Barry fought him, and he beat him, and he almost got killed because he wasn't paying attention either, but Joe saved him. And it was like, man, I wish they just pushed this out to like 3 episodes. And I felt like it could have been simple enough, because Barry, they mentioned like he was there for I believe 3 months or so. So it kind of starts off as if it's just a normal episode, and he just tries to he finally talks with Iris, and so it goes through. He's kind of just been Barry Allen, just doing his thing, and the reason for him even becoming Flash had nothing to do with the time manipulation stuff. Like, oh, he's using his powers a bunch, and that's why he's losing his memories. That didn't even matter to him. That's not why he became the Flash. It was solely because he was like, all right, I've stood around long enough, and Wally, he would have died if I didn't like cushion his fall. He could have died. So I was like, all right, if they just took out the time manipulation thing and just put that into like a second or third episode, we could have seen more stuff. We could have gotten more answers on this alternate universe, which, like I said, maybe I'm just I feel like I'm kind of nitpicking because I knew it wouldn't matter to begin with. But at the same time, I guess because if we're getting the story, it matters no matter what, even if to the characters it doesn't make a difference. As viewers, I guess it still does, because we saw that alternate timeline, and even though it's all gone away, especially with them doing the rival thing, is that a part of, maybe that's something, maybe they had that already planned ahead of time, like, alright, well, the rival's still the main person. And I know that actor too. I saw that actor in something very recent, and it's driving me nuts right now. I can't think of what I saw him in, but he was in some other show that I watched, and I want to say it was a normal show, like actually on network TV, but I feel like at the same time it was something online only. So I'm trying to figure that out. I wish I looked it up now, because that didn't occur to me till I started the review. But I just had a bunch of questions, like, why is this way? Why is this like that? What happened here? What happened there? And I just kind of wish that we got more of it. I would have loved, like I said, even if we didn't get a bunch of answers, just in general, I would have loved an episode where we just saw Barry and Wally together, and, because I would assume, based on the way they did it, he was there for 3 freaking months, and nothing was happening to him, and then he finally had, like, that crazy moment when he was talking with Iris. It's like, now he's starting to be affected by using his speed up and stuff like that. So it's like they easily, with that being the case with them talking about like, oh, he's been here for so long and nothing's been an issue, we jump right in at the very end of it. I would have loved to have seen it. They could have, they write the show, they could have expanded that, and that's the only issue I have with the whole episode. Everything else was super fun. It was cool to see this alternate version. I like the alternate versions of the characters. We got to see, Wally being, he's still kind of cocky, but he's not like unbearable, annoying cocky like he was when he kind of first came in. And he was just like a cocky version of the Flash. They have it where he and Iris are, really close, and, he gets mad when people call him Kid Flash, but that's what they call him because he's so young. And I love that. I was like, I like this idea. I like this side of this alternate version of these characters. Cisco was still actually cool. He was kind of, he was sort of cocky. I thought he'd actually be cockier because of, just from watching the initial trailers, I thought he'd be way more arrogant. But even in the episode, I was like, he's kind of cocky. But even then, I was like, I still kind of like him as a character. He's not like just, I hate this dude. Especially when we find out that he already helped them out. He was already helping them, be superheroes and stuff. He just didn't want to be a part of it. And he mentions that when Wally gets hurt, he's like, this is why I didn't want to be a part of this. And it's like, I don't even hate that dude. He's a cockier version of Cisco, but he's still really awesome. And it's like, there's all this cool stuff, and then it's just gone. It's like, even if it never mattered, if we saw it longer, it would still have a greater impact. It still would have been cooler. But a really great episode. We got some really awesome stuff in here. And then, of course, we have the end of the episode where Barry realizes, there's nothing he can really do. He's used up his powers. He's done what he, really had to do as the Flash. He helped Wally, who, whatever. That was another thing why I thought they should have expanded it into another episode or two, because in the end, when Wally was hurt and it's like, oh, he should be healing, but instead he's not, the first thing that came to my mind is, oh, it's because Barry is so much more powerful than Wally. He's taking up all this excess energy of the Speed Force, and plus there aren't supposed to be 3 speedsters in this universe. They're only meant to be 2, and it's supposed to be Wally as Kid Flash and then the rival. So it's only supposed to be those 2, and then Barry inserted himself, and he's siphoning off some of that Speed Force, which is like an actual thing in the kind of Flash universe. And I was like, oh, that's really cool, but because he just alters time again, it's like, oh, that kind of went nowhere. But that definitely could have been a reference. Even if they said it in the episode, that would have been awesome. But I was like, that totally could have been a reference to like the actual comics, where it's like, oh, I don't know if that's been a thing where that has actually affected someone healing, but I know that, certain people can use the Speed Force more than others, and that could have been something that they manipulated a little bit. Like, oh, because he jumped in and created this whole new universe where there's this speedster and this speedster already, and he's the third, but also the strongest because he was faster than both Wally and the rival. He's siphoning off both their energies, and that's why Wally isn't healing like he should be in any normal situation. But it was like, it doesn't really matter. He's dying, maybe. He's not healing, whatever. And then, he goes back and the Reverse Flash, takes him back in time and actually kills his mom. So, there was stuff that they did where it's like I felt like they introduced so much stuff where I was like, man, there should be answers to this. I'm so curious. And then it's just like, no, it's just what it is. And, it changes by the end. And that really sucks. That's like really the suckiest part about it. I just wish we had another episode in that alternate universe. And we've had stuff like that before. Like when Barry first went back in time, it was like technically that whole episode means nothing. He changed all of that. So it still matters. As viewers, it still matters to us. So I just wish it lasted like at least one more episode. Like I said, I wish that we got to see an actual team up instead of they're next to each other and then one person fights and then the other person fights. We don't actually get to see that. Like if they just had multiple villains, or that would have been a great thing if they brought in, like, if they did the Rogues or something like that, and they threw in like just a random super villain just to make it actually tough. So throw in, Heat Wave, Captain Cold, Golden Glider, and then just throw in like the Steel Dude or whatever. That would have been perfect. That would have been a super easy way to be like, all right, you got 3 human characters, but you still got this superhuman element, and they make the Rogues for like just one episode, and we get to see Barry and Wally team up in this alternate universe, and then like that could have been this episode, or maybe the second episode if they defeat the rival and lock him up. The second episode they have to go around, and Wally's like, all right, I'll stay as the Flash, you stay as Kid Flash, and we team up. And then towards the end of that second episode, or halfway through that episode, that's when he realizes, crap, I can't be the Flash here because I'll lose all my memories and everything, and that's too important to me. So I have to change things back. So that would have been awesome. And that, just even when they first announced it, I was like, oh, that sucks. It's Flashpoint Paradox. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen, I should have mentioned that in the very beginning. If you have not seen the Flashpoint Paradox or read the comic, you need to do one or both, because it is honestly is probably my #1 DC animated movie like that, and then maybe Red Hood is #2. I'd have to watch them back to back to decide, but I think Flashpoint Paradox might be my #1 DC animated movie because it is absolutely amazing. This isn't even a half of a percentage of how amazing the actual Flashpoint Paradox is, because that has like the Justice League in it. It has a different Batman, it has a different Wonder Woman and Aquaman and all these other characters. Barry doesn't even have his powers in the original Flashpoint Paradox because everything changes. He actually stays as just a normal human character. So he was actually kind of lucky in this Flashpoint version. He still had his abilities. So definitely check that out if you haven't. It's not even remotely the same as it is in the show. That's just, what they called it, because that's kind of what it ties into. That is how it starts, where he saves his mom. But if you have not seen it or read the comic, you need to, because it's absolutely amazing. But like I said, I feel like I was just hating on this whole episode, but I think I saw a lot of people mentioning that like it had a big issue here or this or that, but that was the one thing that I had with it. Like, I enjoyed the episode, and I felt it should have been 2 episodes, because like I said, the reason for him leaving wasn't the reason for him being the Flash. So the reason for him being Flash could have been this first episode, and then the reason for him leaving could have been the second episode, where he was like, I'd want to stay in this life, but I have to go. And they could have, split it up and made it 2 things, where he's like, all right, I'm going to be a hero again, because he chose not to be for a super long time. And that would have been kind of cool. Like, all right, I'll be a hero again, because Wally almost got hurt. Even though they don't know about me, I still care about them because I remember them from the original timeline. So I'm going to be Flash again. I'm going to team up with him. He still had his suit and everything, so that would have been awesome. And then the second episode, he's like, crap, we spent so much time fighting the Rose Gallery that, that's when all this other extra stuff comes in, where he's like, I'll forget that I was ever Flash. I don't know if that meant he would actually lose his abilities as the Flash. He just kind of mentioned like, oh, you'd forget you were, and he didn't really say if he'd actually lose the ability to be Flash, but I would assume that would have come in line. If he forgot his memories, then it would have meant that, like you said, the timeline would have been cemented. So he would have actually lost his powers then. But I like the way it played out. And then, of course, we have the ending where Reverse Flash is like, all right, things are back to normal, at least for me. And he's like, wink, wink, I'm going to take off and kill your mom. And so when that happened, I just figured, like, okay, this will be the simple stuff. This will be, oh, we have Supergirl in our universe now. And that was pretty much it. Maybe some little stuff. I didn't know if they were going to keep Kid Flash. I don't think I really had done any research. I just knew he was in this first episode. But that would have been awesome, too. Of course, we can't have the two speedster thing unless, the other speedster is a villain. But, he takes off. They go in. They do the toast to Barry's dad. And he asks where Iris is, and now they've changed that around where Iris and Joe don't talk. So I'm super excited to see that, and that's like another big element where it's like, how does that relationship play out? And Wally knew, like, they don't talk, so it made it seem like he was still somewhat close to Iris. So maybe she knew about him for a long time, and maybe that's why they don't talk. Maybe Iris knew for a long time, and she never told Joe, and then Joe found out at some point. And that kind of doesn't make any sense, because if Iris knew, why would Wally stay away from his dad that long? Like, if I don't know. Anyway, that's random speculation that instantly I was like, that's just dumb, that's stupid. But that could still, they could find a way to make that work, I guess. But I don't know. There are a lot of things, that changed. Of course, the other thing will definitely be the fact that Supergirl is in their universe now. But I don't know. I did enjoy the episode, like I said. I just really wish we got to see more of it. I felt like there were a million questions that I had that could have had answers, even though they technically didn't really matter that much. Like the Earth 2 stuff. I wanted to know everything about Earth 2, and that, as we saw in the finale, that junk don't matter. They're gone. Like, it really doesn't make any difference anymore. So it's still something that I wanted to know, just because it's like, even if it changes back, their lives changed. We just saw the episode, so that's really my one nitpick, and it clearly, considering I've been ranting about it, is my biggest issue with the whole episode, is that we got like a tiny little taste of something that I felt could have easily been split up into 2 episodes, because like I said, the whole reasoning for him being Flash was totally separate from why he even left. He was like, alright, I gotta be a hero again, and I'm totally fine with that. And then he happened to have to leave at the end of the episode. They were 2 totally different things, and I felt they should have made it into 2 totally different episodes, because I really want to see the Flash and Kid Flashes actually fight together, but we still sadly didn't get to see that. But as much as I nitpicked, I still enjoyed the episode. It was a really cool alternate version of the character. I love what they did. Like I said, my favorite thing was definitely the fact that Iris and Wally were just like super close. I was like, that's awesome, because of Wally's actual storyline in the normal timeline. It was really cool to see see the 2 of them actually so close to each other. And he even mentions, like, I wasn't exactly, before I was on the straight and narrow, I used to race cars. So there's still an element of his former life from the original timeline, but then he got his superpowers and he chose to be a hero after that. So it's like, there's still some stuff in there where it's like, I'm kind of curious, how did all this play out? But enjoyed the way they did the cliffhanger for the premiere. Of course, I do want to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and of course, I want to know what you guys thought about the alternate timeline. Do you guys wish that we got to see more of the Flashpoint? Of course, for comic people, or like I said, people that may have seen the movie, you probably had the same thoughts I did. Like, man, it's just nothing compared to the actual story. So I already know that. But I do want to know how you guys felt about such a short stay in this alternate universe. Even if it was a lesser version, there was still a lot to get from that. We had, the rival, who still comes into play, which, like I said, I'm very curious if that's a part of, Wally messing with the timeline, because, speedsters, that's a big thing. Like, sometimes speedsters don't get affected by altered timelines because they're doing some weird stuff. They're in the timeline, or they're within the Speed Force, and then it's like time warps around them, and they're like, oh crap, you changed the timeline, you changed my history, but I still exist because I was outside of, the time stream at that specific point. So I don't know if that was the dude from the Flashpoint Earth talking to the current timeline Earth version of the rival, or what the deal was with him, but I hope it ties into the Flashpoint thing, honestly, because I would love it if for whatever reason Barry had to go back to the Flashpoint version to change something else, and that was how he stopped the rival from even existing. in his Earth. That would be an awesome way to do it. And then we get to see the Flashpoint Earth again. That would be pretty freaking sweet. But like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about our short stay in the Flashpoint Earth and what you guys thought about the premiere in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.